Good afternoon. In the past hour, transport officials in Russia have confirmed that all 71 passengers and crew on board an internal flight from Moscow have died after the plane came down shortly after takeoff. Emergency services have found wreckage of the airliner in fields around 25 miles from the capital. The Russian Transport Ministry said it is investigating the cause. The plane left Moscow's Domodedovo airport this afternoon. It was bound for the city of Orsk, about 1,000 miles southeast of the city, but disappeared from radar screen roughly 10 minutes after takeoff. Well, let's go live to Sky's Moscow correspondent Diana Magne, who is close to the crash site near the village of Argunovo. Diana, what more can you tell us on this?
That's right. Well, you can probably see behind me a backlog of emergency vehicles. They've been going up this street towards the crash site. As you said, we now believe that all 71 on board were killed when the plane came down. And if you look at the flight tracker, it's very interesting. The plane took off, and at 11:26, just shortly before it dropped off the radar, it fell a massive 3,000 feet in 20 seconds. That's about 40 meters a second. And you do have to question whether a plane could have survived intact or whether it actually started to break up as it fell at that kind of speed. Now, of course, we do not know what has happened to the plane. We understand from the agencies that one black box recorder has been found. This plane was en route to Orsk. That is a town very close to the border with Kazakhstan. And there is also video of many people's relatives in that airport waiting to hear news, the very worst news. The president of Russia, President Putin, has extended his profound condolences to all the relatives and families of those who were lost in this air crash. And it is been very, very bad. In Moscow, they've experienced extremely heavy snowfall, and that, of course, has made getting the emergency workers to the site much more difficult. We saw pictures on social media of tractors trying to push the snow away from the scene as first responders start to pick up the bodies.
Now, Diana, we know that emergency services have recovered 2 bodies so far. What are the apparent challenges there for emergency services and indeed the investigators?
Well, the snowfall, first and foremost. It's not particularly heavy at the moment, but it has come down a great deal over the last few days. So that's the first challenge. But at the end of the day, this crash happened very close to the Russian capital. It was only within 10 minutes that the plane came down. And that, of course, is the big question. Why, all of a sudden, if you look at the flight path, everything seemed to be going according to plan, and then suddenly this huge drop in altitude. Now, what could that have been? An explosion in the engine? Why couldn't the pilot somehow coast the plane to safety if one of the engines had failed? All of these, of course, we do not know yet. It's still very early in the investigation. Russia's investigative committee are handling this, and the head of that committee is en route. I would imagine he's already at the crash site. But of course, collecting those bodies from the wreckage, thankfully, I suppose you could argue, it is very close to this village of Argunovo, so it shouldn't be too tricky, but of course a terrible, terrible wait for those relatives. We do believe from the Orenburg regional government, that's where the city of Orsk is, that most of the passengers on board that plane had come from the Orenburg region. So of course the pain in that particular corner of Russia today is very, very severe.